All right, hello and welcome back. Today is Saturday, February 22nd. My name is Dan. This is Dan's Astrology, and I will be talking today about the transit of the planet Mercury in Pisces conjunct Saturn. Now, there's a number of important things to consider here, namely that Mercury is in both fall and exile in Pisces, and this means that it's kind of one of the quirks of the zodiac, that for some reason, usually these planets might get an exaltation and a domicile, or an exaltation, or whatever. You have exaltation and fall, and you have domicile and exile. But in Mercury's case, these double up in the signs of Pisces and Virgo, where Mercury does extra well in Virgo and extra not so great in Pisces, right? So you have to consider, first of all, that the dignity counts as a debility, and then that Saturn is a malefic. So you've got a weakened Mercury running into a malefic, which often stands for things like, so you've got basic stuff like the communicator in a debilitated condition running into Saturn, which is often a kind of an obstacle or a limit or a threshold or something like that. And suitably, in my own life, I just went through a 3-day period where my internet connection was down. And it was interesting because I have to admit that on one hand, you could approach the problem from a materialistic point of view, or a kind of the perspective of astrological omens, where everything follows a kind of divine providence and is follows these patterns, right? Because if you go by, but it's not to say that the astrology causes things to happen, but rather are markers. If you were to look at the forecast of all these planets and be like, when is the time when I'm most likely to have communication problems or problems with my information retrieval delivery system or something like that? It's probably when Mercury is going to be in a poor condition, conjunct or aspecting a malefic. This is also a similar principle to like how technical things go awry when it's Mercury retrograde. Oh, wait a minute. I just remembered, speaking of which, I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Do you guys enjoy the little break? Some people might be inclined to edit such things out, right? People might want to have a sort of streamlined video that has no gaps or moments of silence, little intermissions like that. But the way we do it at Dan's Astrology is a bit different here. We allow these breaks. It's like, maybe certain vegetable people might search out different fruits and vegetables and only put the ones on the stand that are completely blemish-free, that don't have any bruises, they don't have any perfections, and all of that produce, which is imperfect, is removed from the marketplace. But here we have at Dan's Astrology a different way of approaching things, that we allow the produce to have a certain degree of imperfection. If you're used to watching other kinds of videos where these things are removed and it's too much for you to handle, you can always switch to watch another YouTube channel at another time. Just giving you a heads up of what it's going to be like watching Dan's Astrology. another heads up, if you're new to this channel, that if you don't watch, you may or may not heard of a Jungian analyst, a post-Jungian, a pre-Jungian even, named James Hillman. But here at Dan's Astrology, I'm heavily influenced by James Hillman. You could blame Adam Ellenboss for this, because if I had never gotten into taking astrology courses and following along with astrologers, I would never have been exposed to the corrupt influence of James Hillman, who has been it's been an interesting influence on my life, because it's been something that I find really inspirational and I'm very enthusiastic about, actually. But it's sort of alienating, because basically any kind of anything that would like warrant getting into James Hillman is sort of like a area of conversation that I can't talk to my family about, or that if you have roommates and you start leaving James Hillman books out on the coffee table, they start giving you funny looks. So it's sort of like, I really love it, but it makes me feel sort of like alienated in that I can't really talk to people about my literary passions. But then, and that's just how it goes, right? I was thinking, as I was waiting for my internet connection to restore itself, and I was offline, I didn't catch up on a lot of reading, but I was thinking about a lot of things that have been going on. What's going on in the news these days. I had just recorded a video called Doomer Astrology, and I was talking about, the whole issue about looking at some of the more difficult transits that's happening this year, and how we have this constant imperative to be positive and stuff like that, which I think is mainly due to a kind of corporate business culture where there's a certain kind of fake positive attitude that's always necessary for being, dealing with customers and customer service, or all this kind of stuff, right? There's So I was talking about doomerism in my last book, and this one is interesting, because at the end of it, he talks a little bit about the end of the world, but he also talks about technology. He talks about, there's just kind of thing that I have to admit that there's an issue around a lot of this to do with animism, basically, that I wanted to get into, right? And that from a kind of materialistic, non-animistic view of reality, that we have the internet connection that is, we've got to be thankful that we have an internet connection that can deliver these important broadcasts to you, because without it, I'm basically stuck, isolated away from this information stream, and the only thing I can do to keep myself busy is to do things like set up my old turntables and vinyl records and read books, and there's this whole world of the last few days. I was basically, there's an interesting scenario, because it's like feeling like you're cut off from the information stream that keeps you connected to the rest of the world, right? Like there could be, for all I know, there could be all sorts of things happening out there that I don't know about, and in order to make sure that some catastrophe hasn't broken out, I have to check the internet periodically to just make sure the world's still in one piece. And I have to admit that I do have a cellular data plan, so while my internet connection was disrupted for a few days, I did use my cellular data to just like peek on the internet, but for the most part it was like a nice sort of like detox kind of like rest period. So I think basically what I'm trying to suggest, first of all, is that if you want a delineation, that you could expect things to either be broken down or obstructed in terms of communication, or it could also just be a nice time to take a rest, to take a break, to slow down a little bit, to give yourself a little bit of an internet vacation or something like that. Or at least I had to do it anyways, because my internet connection was disrupted. And when we got it repaired, the repair didn't take very long, but it came to our attention that the material reason why, or the real reason why the internet was down, was because a rat because it's the winter time, rats had crawled into the wall to take shelter from the cold weather and had chewed through our expensive fiber optic internet cable. And so there's something about the reoccurring theme of the rat and the problem of pest control that keeps coming up. And that could be another thing with the signification of Mercury, Saturn, because I feel like Saturn, Saturn rules the opposition. Saturn often stands for a kind of like the other, the quality of the other in contrast to the self of the solar hero, right? And so there's this, the other day, it's almost like we were having this issue with invasive stink bugs, and the other day that I had to evacuate an invasive stink bug out of my room, and this thing was like, it was just, there's a strange sense of otherness about it, like this strange intruder that's not human, that doesn't, that has invaded my area that I have to deal with. And so there's some kind of like, there's this issue about the human and the non-human and the non-human other, and then what we as humans want to do, our wishes, our desires, our will to have this constant information stream, and how those kinds of human agendas are disrupted by these non-human others, such as pests or whatever, right? But then there's also the issue about fascism, which is like taking human beings and dehumanizing them, making them into another, treating people like pests, to be exterminated, and all that, which gets pretty dark. Obviously, I'm not going to go there too much, but in the light of what's going on, I had a nice little vacation from social media for a few days, and then my internet's back, and I get to look to see what's going on, and it's just a whole bunch of like alt-right guys doing, like Steve Bannon doing a Nazi salute, Elon Musk waving a chainsaw around, and it gives you the impression like, Jesus Christ, like maybe, like if I just don't have the internet and I'm cut off from all this, there's like, I could be watching the news and getting angry, getting upset, getting triggered, all this kind of stuff, and then if my internet connection's down for 3 days, like what is there, at what point in time does all this business happening in the States actually affect me, right? And there's this critical issue about like, even if they make a whole bunch of noise that only affects me on a psychological level, what if that's what they're going for? Like, what if it's just like they're trying to like, it's like a psyop? Or I remember a story when I was a young man in elementary school, that when I was growing up, that my parents, they were protective parents, and they didn't want me to play hockey, right? They didn't want me to play hockey. They didn't want me to play lacrosse. They didn't want me to play football. They didn't want me to play most of these physical sports that most people would be playing would be like tough guys, because they thought that maybe it would be too violent or all this kind of stuff. But nevertheless, you had to be situated in a school, public school, with all sorts of kids, some of them maybe more athletic, some more physical or than not, or whatever. And there's some kind of like this one kid, the thing is, I don't consider myself to be ever really a violent person, but there are certain times growing up where there's certain kids that would just try to like annoy you to like see what your limit is. And I think there's something about this sort of maybe Mercury and Saturn, and it's in a trine to Mars, right? So there is a certain kind of like, somebody who's pushing the limits with how much you're going to tolerate from their annoying behavior. And there's something about the, like, I remember this particular kid would use this idea of deking out, right? Where it's like in hockey, where it's like, like you're going to do like a sports thing where you're going to take a shot on the goal. You do these like fake shots, and then you try to like trick the goalie into think you're going to commit to a certain shot, but then you like hesitate and you stop, and then you go, oh, and then you got to deke him out, right? And so this guy would be like trying to like, I don't know, like annoy kids on the playground by like, I'm deking you out, and you just gotta be like, at some point in time, you just gotta like, just do a sucker punch, just to be like, yeah, okay, you didn't deke me out that time, I just smacked you right in the face, and you're not gonna do that anymore, right? And one of the problem, there's a problem with this trade war bullshit, is that like, we don't actually know if the trade war is on. For all we know, that by the time we get to March, they'll just be like, they'll pull back from the tariffs, and then be like, oh, Deked Out, but we're gonna try to get you to sign your like water to us so that we can just turn on the tap. It was all just a play to like trick you into giving us all your water. We're not gonna put the tariffs, Deked You Out, right? You gotta, if that's their play, you gotta just smack this kid right in the face and so that he knows not to fuck around, basically, right? Just, I don't know, maybe I'm getting off track here, but like, if people, you gotta sort of like, even if you're non-violent, at some point in time, if kids will just like irritate the fuck out of you because they don't know where the limit is, and they'll just push your limits to see how far they can get away with. And so it's important to, I think you can see maybe the Canada-America relations in that way, right? Or I don't know, I'm not sure how it relates to the whole thing about. Anyways, there's also this whole issue about like, I don't know, like sometimes there's a certain superstition kind of thing, right? Where in a materialistic attitude, it's like, it's nothing personal. The rat didn't mean it. The rat wasn't it wasn't that the rat was so offended by how bad my astrology videos are that the rat had to like bite through my internet connection to basically put me on a time, because it starts to trigger this sort of like like the part of my brain that still feels like I am the kid in elementary school who's getting put on a now you just punched the kid who was trying to deke you out in the face. Now you got to sit in detention for 3 days, and no internet access, no this, no that, and you're on a detention, and you're being punished because you're a bad boy. Don't get any internet, don't get any screen. It's like that kind of school teacher authority isn't there, but we like imagine, there must be, like, if a God exists, God must be like this school teacher who sets rules and gives me rewards and punishments, and because I make such shitty astrology videos that nobody likes, I'm punished for having my rat bite through my internet connection, and I just have to sit in detention for 3 days and have a good think about it, right? That's like, that's one way to think about it. But there's some other kind of thing is that, like, what if we take, what I'm trying to get into is if we go with the animism, right? What if, instead of saying that we live in a world where plants and animals have spirits just like humans, what if the machines also have spirits, all the inanimate objects have spirits, even our internet connection has a spirit, and what if the internet connection was just depressed, tired, worn out? What if our poor fiber optic cables are just shocked at having to deliver Nazi salutes and, news of, fascist dominance, and that the poor soul of the infrastructure just can't take it, right? If we start to imagine things like that, we start to imagine our machinery having the demands of soul, that maybe the internet connection just needs to take a break, just needs to take a breather, just needs to take a little vacation. Maybe, like, this is the kind of thing is that maybe it's not that we need to take a break from the internet for our own mental health, but rather our own infrastructure needs to take a break from all this bullshit because the actual cables can't take it anymore. The cables are just like, what are we doing why must, our whole purpose is just to deliver bullshit to people, and, thank God, maybe we can get these rats to chew through. Like maybe the rats can chew through us, and we can have this. There's this, some of these New Agers say that, like, what manifests is like a need trying to be met. Like, or maybe it could be that us humans have this need to not have this whole pipeline of garbage constantly being fed to us, but we can't stop ourselves, so we need the rats to help us. We need the rats that we let live in our garage to chew through our internet cables to prevent us from being exposed to this kind of content. And on that note, James Hillman, in this book, says, technology is not necessarily the enemy of the heart. Technology is not inherently soulless. we are less endangered by the brute facts of nuclear, genetic, computer, and chemical technology as such than we are by the brute anesthetized conception of these technical inventions as soulless mechanisms. We're not endangered by the brute fact of war, the brute fact of these trade wars, the brute fact of the problem of fascism, all this kind of stuff. But we are, we have this idea that all these technical devices are soulless, that they are mechanical, that these things don't have a heart and a soul like we do, right? That animals we privilege above the machine, and we've gotten used to treating animals with this, but we don't treat the machines with the same care. Because they are conceived in the Cartesian Christian fantasy, they become objective, brute, and mute. Technical inventions have become the great repressed slaves, obedient to mechanical laws, disallowed breakdown, and so we fear them. We want the most from them at the least cost. Because the paradigm of our mindset allows soul only to subjective persons, technology is not considered part of what Whitehead calls nature alive, a realm of speaking objects with faces, and is instead a fearful Frankenstein monster. Technology becomes psychopathological when, like any other phenomenon, it is deprived of soul as it has been by the very theoretical assumptions that gave birth to it in the first place. It was monstrously conceived, but now cheeky, perky R2-D2 has replaced Boris Karloff. The monster subsides along with Newtonian mechanism. Technology can be reconsidered, each thing imagined anew in terms of anima mundi. And, he goes on to do this whole thing where he talks about the Cartesian Christianity, right? Which is interesting because when you think about Cartesian Christianity, you think about Cartesian dualism. And I took a course actually from a guy, G.F. Martel from Weird Studies a couple of years back, where he was talking more in terms of Immanuel Kant, right? And the idea of Kant was the guy who created this problem of this whole dualism between mind and body, or the human consciousness and the world, that were separated from basically phenomenology, a phenomenological perspective that says, how can we trust our senses, how can we trust our perceptions about the real objective nature of the world, and the real objective nature of reality may always be obscured to us. And similarly, in Christian dualism, there is a constant sort of separation, a Manichaean dualism between good and evil, between heaven and earth, between man and God, right? And James Hillman is sort of resolving this problem by bringing the soul not back down just to humans and animals, but even the machine, an intimately animated world where even the machines have a soul. So that when you give a Nazi salute, it's not just that it's not like it hurts some person's feeling. The whole internet is just shuddering with disgust at the whole situation, right? Is basically, the rats are freaking. The rats want to we have a whole bunch of rats that want to eat through our internet cables because just to give some reprieve from the terrible poisonous garbage that's pumping through them, to have a moment of respite, a moment of rest, so that we don't have to spend every waking hour of our life having these images of Nazi salutes, of people getting upset about trade wars, which may not even happen. We don't even know. It could just be, like I said, it could just be like in hockey, how they train the kids to deke you out, right? They're just deking you out. They're just, what a bunch of clever guys. We won't see it coming. Are they going this way? Are they going that way? They're gonna deke us out, right? And so the whole infrastructure is just fuck this, right? Fuck this, right? We don't give a shit, right? We'll just turn our internet off for a week. We'll pretend we're back, in before the internet existed, and we'll just listen to old heavy metal records and pretend we're in a, there's another, which I'm trying to get at here, is there's this idea of escapism that I think goes maybe with this Pisces stellium. That there's something about the kind of the melancholy and depression of a kind of wanting a release or wanting escape from either this situation that we find ourselves in right now in terms of this period of time, or it could be like this desire for like the world that we live in is just depressing, and we don't want any more news. We don't want any more information. I just, what good is this going to do for me, right? Like, what can I do? Like, if all this stuff going on in the United States, like, I have to be also upfront that I can see with my analytics that most of the people who watch these videos that I record are actually American, right? So I have a whole audience of Americans who have to deal with this firsthand, and we, as Canadians, we only have to deal with this virtual threat of annexation, or this virtual threat of maybe there's going to be a trade war. You guys actually have to deal with these guys in your government, we just have to deal with these people psychologically threaten, trying to rattle the Canadians, trying to disturb our sense of our individuality, our sovereignty, our autonomy, our ability to self-determine ourselves. And, why don't we just turn the fucking TV off? Why don't we just turn the internet off? Why don't we just not pay attention to it, look the other way, and, like, one of the things that I have been doing since my internet connection was off was I went back to play Elden Ring, right? And, in Elden Ring, I've created a character who is an astrologer wizard who has casts magic spells and stuff like that, and rather than dealing with a stupid political situation, I can just play Elden Ring and forget about my life and pretend I'm a wizard and cast magic spells, and like maybe that is actually, all in all, maybe everybody's better off if I just do that and I forget about the news, I forget about politics, I forget about my, who I am as a person who lives as a flesh and blood human being. Maybe I just give myself over to the video game simulation world. Or like, what I'm trying to say is there could be with Mercury, Saturn, Neptune, some desire to either turn off the technology or inversely to embrace the technology, to give a vacation from this reality because it's stupid. It's a stupid reality, right? And if to switch it off, right? Why not? And I've had the internet back on since about 3 o'clock yesterday, and I can't say I've really benefited from it. All I have is just more of these images of fascist oligarchs waving their little Nazi salutes around to get my nervous system on edge, right? Maybe I just need to avoid technology. I just need to avoid reality. If this is this so-called reality you guys are peddling. Also the algorithm. There's another part of this. While my internet connection was down, I recorded a video about AI doomerism, and I decided not to put it up. But a lot of this also is like people who might be creating videos that are perpetuating a certain kind of dumbness, right? There's a certain kind of, I'm not going to name any names, I'm not going to point any fingers, but let's just say that artificial intelligence isn't as intelligent as people make it out to be, and that I think we have less concern about some advanced, artificial intelligence taking over, but really more of concern of a wave of populist morons, kind of an idiot wave of people who have lost their critical thinking capacity And one of the things that I don't want to do is to make astrology videos that basically feed that kind of audience, right? Like, if you're the only reason why you are into astrology is that you have lost your ability to have critical reasoning, and I don't know, man. Like, it's like, if you can't, if you don't, if you just want to, like, if your version of watching astrology videos is basically like you're just going to run away to a video game RPG fantasy world and wave your magic wand around so you don't have to deal with reality, I don't know if I want to be doing that with the channel that I have. I take a more serious approach to things, and if there are serious circumstances that we have to deal with as a civilization, I'm not going to like make this into a little entertainment hour where you get to see some like flashy graphics and like animations and stimulate and wow guys, we're on a fancy I don't know what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? I think that a lot of the astrology content out there sucks basically, and it's like, I think that's another thing, that if my internet connection goes down, if I'm offline, there's a lot of times I just watch astrology videos and it instills within me this sort of sense of, do I even want to do this? If you look at the kinds of stuff that becomes popular and successful, it's like, I don't know, man. It's not like stuff, people that I'd want to collaborate with. It's mainly people that, to me, feel like would be feeding the problem of a population of a bunch of sort of superstitious morons who believe, who have no ability to discern from truth and fiction, myth and what is this fantasy world versus reality. And some of them may spin this whole thing about like the Cartesian dualism or Kant about phenomenology. The phenomenological world is just an illusion. So what if it's all just a dream? What if there is no reality? And then so they in turn use this to justify doing the most silly you can just say, oh, life is whatever you make it. You just need to be an empowered dreamer so that you can dream whatever you want, and I can just sort of like hallucinate whatever reality is going to be and say that I'm in control of things, and and call that reality, right? These are things basically that I'm trying to describe to you, the dynamic of what are the problems to be aware of with this transit. And it's also interesting, the whole thing about escapism, because escapism often has this sort of like imperative not to escape, right? That escapism is irresponsible. It is sort of like a way to avoid the inherent issues that would be dealt with more in a more mature way. But there's another argument to be made that the whole system of capitalism is itself an escape. That the whole idea is that the more money you make, you are now enabled to escape the circumstances that you were obligated into. That you're bound into these responsibilities. What can I do? I can't do anything with my life because I don't. But as soon as you have the money, you can hire people to take care of those responsibilities for you, and you can just do whatever you want. Life is your oyster, and whether or not it's like from that point of view, whether or not what you can't do is do anything you want, because what if you pollute the environment? What if you don't even have to believe in that now. Let's just we'll just fly around on airplanes everywhere and have, meet me in Portugal, meet me in Hawaii, meet me all over the fucking world. We're going to burn down anyways, might as well have a ball, right? And so I think there's a certain idea of like, to maybe, instead of like, seeing the hustle culture is that your ticket out of here. Yeah, we're just gonna hustle. We're gonna make money. We're gonna fucking travel the world. We're gonna be the jet-setting entrepreneur class, drinking champagne while it all burns down around us. You could be, rather than that escape, I want an escape from that, so I don't have to schmooze with those kinds of people, and I can just sort of accept a modest, humble life that I don't have to like become some sort of like entrepreneur hustler to provide me with my fantasy escape, right? That I can embrace the simple things in life, and I can like, keep my nose to the ground. One of the during my reprieve from the internet and all the psychological burden the internet puts on me, I dug out my vinyl records, and one of these vinyl records I have, and I'll show you guys. Check this out. I have Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, a great Black Sabbath record, and on the title track of this record, one of the lyrics Ozzy Osbourne sings is, "God knows as your dog knows what's it coming to," right? And there's something about this sort of like funny, because first of all, obviously God and dog is, like, you put God backwards, it's dog, and we often think about, like, you know, the human and the animal and the angel, and the sort of like the transcendent angel as being something high above, and then but the dog is something low, like a lowly creature. But what if in the there's something about the human senses that the dog has a whole sensory world that the human isn't granted access to, right? So that from a human being's perspective, we have a certain sensory. This is what gets actually into this Kantian stuff, right? That there's this whole thing is like, we can't trust our senses because our eyes see so much, our nose only sees so much, and then if we compare it to an animal like a dog, the dog has less ability to see things but more ability to smell things. And so the idea of, like, there's this whole sensory world, the real world, not just what we can get through our senses, but the real world, which includes all these smells that only dogs can hear, or like the idea of the dog whistle, right? Which is, you know, used to be like a code that only certain people can pick up on, right? But the idea of, like, dogs can actually literally hear sounds that humans can't hear, right? So there's also interesting. I found out there's this whole thing, scientific issue called dark matter, where there is apparently the theory of dark matter comes from the sense that when physicists are trying to do calculations, there's all this like extra gravity in the universe, and usually gravity is attached to mass, right? Like a mass has gravity, but there's like all this gravity that doesn't have a mass, or that at least they can't detect where the mass is. So there's a sort of like sense that there's a whole maybe invisible world that is only detectable through extra gravity that is unaccountable for, and we call this dark matter, right? And so that if there's something like God, it's like, what if there's some ability to take count for the, like, reality that includes all this stuff as humans that we aren't aware of, that we can't detect, but that maybe these animals that we consider to be lower than us, like dogs, can pick up on it through their enhanced sensory, their nose, right? And that, like, what if we think that God is something that all lofty and high above us, but what if God is actually like the increased sense of smell that your dog has, and that when your dog is, like, we're as humans, I take my dogs for a walk every day, and they like to smell things and mark their territory. And you know, for them, it's an incredibly interesting world of smells and, you know, all sorts of things that they can. I have no idea what they are picking up on, right? And this could be another archetype going with this whole thing about the phenomenological world and the limits of human perception and the dualism between mind and body, where we acknowledge our sensory apparatus is somewhat limited, and that maybe there must be something that sees all of it, that apprehends all of it, that is a kind of a transcendent awareness, and that people, you know, when it comes to, like, whether you're atheist or not, people, you could say that's a thing. Do you want to call that thing God? Or a potential transcendent awareness that goes beyond all the limitations of all the individual organisms, that gets the whole picture? And do you want to call that God, right? And then there's this also kind of thing that if we do that, if we extend the soul to the animal, I mean, there's this whole kind of thing. There's a funny, I tend not to really get, you know, like, some Christians don't think animals have souls, right? Some Christians would probably also say it's obvious that your internet connection doesn't have a soul, or that, you know, maybe when the rat chews through your internet cables, it's just a coincidence. It's just an accident. You know, the rats aren't in on it, man. You know, like, that's one thing about, it's also kind of funny in my other video I mentioned that I had, mental health issues like schizoaffective bipolar, and I don't even think that's really, I mean, I think if I was really like schizo, I would be like, you know, concoct a conspiracy theory about my internet connection going down. Like, it would be like, yeah, like, you know, maybe it wasn't, maybe the rats is just a story, and it's like the Tellus guys are actually fucking with me. Or maybe they've planted mechanical rats, and if I say the wrong thing in my video, they use the remote control mechanical rat to bite through the internet cable, so as a control mechanism, right? You know, or maybe the rats themselves have little like radio receivers, and the rats are getting signals from Tellus headquarters that if, like, oh no, the astrologer is making funny videos again, better radio into the rats to get them to bite through the internet cables, right? Like, these are all, I mean, I'm just kidding. I don't actually believe that, but there's something there's some sort of superstitious part of my mind that has, like, on one level, maybe it's just material, maybe it's just an accident, but there's another, as Gurdjieff would say, if you follow along, it's like being taken from one shore to the other shore, where you go from the law of accident to the law of non-accident, where there are no accidents. Everything has meaning. Everything is fitting directly in to the cosmic play without any even the most insignificant thing that you think is just random, chaotic, is exactly part of the grand cosmic play in a way that you would never be able to understand. But it's there, everything is happening for a reason, even when the little rat chews through your internet cables. It's happening on purpose. But it's not, but then we jump to a conclusion. We think if it's happening for a purpose, it must be like the school teacher who is punishing me, who thinks I need a detention, who I need a timeout, that I just need to have a good think about it for a while. I just need to sit in the corner and think about all the bad things I've said, all the bad things I've done, and or also just be like you're being punished because you're becoming addicted to this spectacle, this political you're addicted to the political spectacle, like a old lady is addicted to cheesecake. And it's basically like God is like some kind of authoritarian, paternalistic figure who said you've had enough cheesecake, you've had enough fucking internet trash. You're gonna take a break, or we're gonna send the rats to chew through your internet cables, right? And the little rodents, not only do they have a soul, but they're actually part of the whole cosmic drama. And we need to honor our little rodent friends. We need to honor the internet connection that provides us. Thank you for the internet. Thank you for the rodents. Thank you for the crazy Americans. Thank you for this crazy, wonderful universe. And thank you for continuing to watch these astrology videos. I will be back for more. Stay tuned and keep on rocking in the free world. I'm ripping off Nardwuar, but you know, whatever can I say? I'm representing for Canada here. You know, oh Canada, our home and nation free. Is that how? I think that's how it goes. Screw you, America. Yeah. All right. Thanks for watching.